The Fall of Prophet Samuel, a story of deception. One stormy Sunday morning, a desperate crowd filled the massive hall of Divine Glory Ministries. Whispers rippled through the rows as they craned their necks to catch sight of Prophet Samuel, popularly known as Papa Talk and Do. Some said he could pierce straight into a person's soul, revealing secrets no one could ever know. Others swore that he had the power to speak directly with God. But today, something unsettling hung in the air. Just then, a scream echoed from the side of the hall. A deacon named Brother James, one of Papa Talk and Do's trusted aides, rushed to the front, wide-eyed and shaking. "She walks. The mad woman walks. Papa has healed her." The congregation erupted in cheers, but Grace, a quiet church observer who had attended for months, noticed something strange. She had seen this very same woman, supposedly insane and homeless, walking normally around the market just days before, chatting casually with vendors. Doubt clawed at her heart, but who would believe her? Papa Talk and Do was powerful, untouchable. His followers would fight anyone just to protect him. But Grace had her own reasons for being there. Reasons that ran deeper than mere suspicion. Reasons rooted in pain, betrayal, and a promise for justice. Years back, Samuel had been a simple young man from a humble, God-fearing family. His parents raised him to be honest, devoted, and to walk in the light. He had been the shining hope of their church, leading youth meetings, organizing prayer services, and singing in the choir. Everyone adored him, and some even said he was destined for greatness. But no one foresaw how his path would twist in such a dark direction. During those early days, Samuel had been in a relationship with Grace. She was beautiful, kind, and deeply in love with him. They had plans, dreams of a future together. But when Grace became pregnant, Samuel panicked. He was young, ambitious, and feared that fatherhood would derail his ministerial aspirations. "You have to get rid of it," he had told her coldly one night. "I can't let this ruin everything I've been working toward." Grace had begged him to reconsider, tears streaming down her face. "Samuel, this is our child. We can make this work. Please." But Samuel was insistent. He gave her money and the address of a backstreet clinic. "Do this, or we're done." Desperate to keep him, Grace went through with the abortion. But something went terribly wrong. The procedure was botched, and complications arose that left her hemorrhaging. By the time she reached a proper hospital, it was too late. The doctors had to perform an emergency hysterectomy to save her life. At 22 years old, Grace lost her womb, and with it, any chance of ever becoming a mother. When Samuel found out, he didn't visit her in the hospital. He didn't call. He simply vanished from her life, moving to another city to pursue his ministerial dreams, leaving Grace to pick up the broken pieces alone. As Grace lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling and processing the reality that she would never bear children, something hardened inside her. The pain transformed into resolve. If Samuel ever rose to prominence, if he ever stood before crowds claiming to be a man of God, she would be there. She would expose him for what he truly was. Years later, after struggling to build his ministry without success, Samuel attended a grand conference for pastors. They met several famous preachers who seemed to hold a secret power. The leader, Prophet Jeremiah, pulled him aside. "You're trying to be godly, but you'll never make an impact until you're willing to sacrifice," the older man said, his eyes glinting with an otherworldly knowledge. He talked about a special ceremony, one that would require a significant offering from Samuel. At first, Samuel hesitated, but Prophet Jeremiah promised him the influence he desperately sought. Driven by his desire to succeed, he agreed. That night, he participated in a strange ritual. The sacrifice demanded was unlike anything he could have imagined. He had to give up his manhood, his ability to ever father children, as an offering to the marine powers. The pastors gathered around, chanting while Samuel's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The ritual was painful, both physically and spiritually. But when it was over, he felt an eerie power settle around him like a dark cloak. He couldn't explain it, but something fundamental had changed. After returning from the conference, Samuel's fortune began to shift dramatically. People started flocking to his services, and soon the entire country had heard of Papa Miracle. His church began filling up with members from every corner of Nigeria and beyond. His fame grew exponentially, and with it, his wealth. But this was only the beginning. Unknown to his followers, Prophet Samuel, the man they worshipped as Papa Talk and Do, was far more than just a deceitful prophet. Beneath his human exterior lay an ancient, sinister secret. Samuel was a half-human, half-serpent, a hybrid of darkness whose origin traced back to a mysterious underwater covenant he had entered after joining the cult. Every midnight, he would disappear from his luxurious mansion, leaving the world of mortals behind. In the dead of night, he would shed his human form and transform into a creature with scales as dark as midnight. This transformation marked his journey to the underwater kingdom, where his true allegiance lay. Samuel would slip silently into the river behind his mansion, vanishing beneath the waters as if swallowed by the very earth itself. There, in the depths, he would join his occultic brothers and sisters, other pastors and prophets who had pledged themselves to the marine kingdom. There they shared twisted wisdom, dark strategies, and skills to keep their congregations bound in deception. For Samuel, this was where he drew his power. The Marine Queen, a towering figure with serpentine features, bestowed upon him strength, vision, and the ability to see into the lives of his followers. But there was a price for this power: his soul, his humanity, and the sacrifice of his manhood that left him permanently scarred. Back in his church, no one suspected a thing. To them, Samuel was a holy prophet, and they were oblivious to his midnight disappearances. His congregation continued to grow as people flocked from far and wide, desperate for miracles, healing, and deliverance. Those who sought his favor were willing to pay any price, from cash offerings to livestock and even precious family heirlooms. Within months, Samuel began implementing strange new practices. At the entrance of the massive church building, he installed an enormous mirror, nearly 10 feet tall and ornately framed in gold. He called it the Mirror of Life. This mirror, he would say with commanding authority, is blessed by the Almighty himself. Every time you enter this house of worship, look into it. It captures your spiritual essence and allows me to see the state of your soul. What the congregants didn't know was that Samuel had identical mirrors, exact replicas, in both his private office and his bedroom at home. These mirrors were tools connected to the marine world. Through them, Papa Talk and Do could peer into his members' lives, studying their weaknesses, secrets, and fears. More disturbingly, he could see their destinies, their God-given potentials, and their future glories. One Sunday, Papa Miracle called a young university student named Chidi to the front. The young man had only attended the church twice. "Come forward, my son," Samuel commanded. Chidi nervously approached the altar. Samuel placed his hand on the young man's forehead, closing his eyes as if receiving divine revelation. "I see great things in your future. A groundbreaking invention. You will become internationally renowned. Your name will be written in history books." The congregation erupted in applause. Chidi's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Let me pray for you," Samuel said, pressing his palm firmly against Chidi's forehead. But as he prayed loudly in tongues, something sinister was occurring. Through the connection established by the mirrors, Samuel was siphoning away Chidi's glory, stealing the very destiny that had been divinely ordained for the young man. This became his pattern. Whenever Samuel identified someone with exceptional potential, whether in business, academia, arts, or any field, he would call them out for special prayers. His followers felt honored, blessed to receive personal attention from Papa Talk and Do. They never realized they were being robbed of their God-given futures. Grace watched this happen repeatedly. She noticed a pattern. The people who received these special blessings from Samuel often experienced sudden downturns in their lives shortly afterward. Promising students would inexplicably fail exams. Talented entrepreneurs would see their businesses mysteriously collapse. Gifted artists would lose their creative spark. The church soon introduced holy water, bottled with simple labels but sold at exorbitant prices. Samuel would wave his hands over the containers, claiming they could cure any sickness, fix any marriage, and even bring financial blessings. "Bring your containers," he would announce from the pulpit. Leave them in my office for 3 days and 3 nights, and I will pray over them. The Lord will transform ordinary water into liquid miracles. Dozens of members would line up, leaving jerry cans and bottles in Samuel's office, paying substantial fees for the blessing ceremony. But Grace, who had begun working as a janitor in the church to get closer to Samuel's operations, discovered the horrifying truth. Late one evening, while cleaning near Samuel's private office, she heard him inside. Peeking through a crack in the door, she saw him urinating directly into a large barrel. He then used a cup to pour the contaminated liquid into the waiting containers of water. Now take this water home and drink from it each day, he would tell the unsuspecting congregants. Let it touch every area of your life. Grace felt nauseous but forced herself to stay calm. This was evidence she needed. The salty, slightly strange taste people reported in their blessed water wasn't divine transformation. It was Samuel's urine mixed with their drinking water. One Sunday, Prophet Samuel's voice echoed through the church as he scanned the congregation with piercing eyes. His gaze landed on a young woman seated in the middle row. Her name was Adiz, a quiet, newly returned graduate who had just come back from overseas with her parents to visit Samuel's church. Having heard of Papa Talk and Do and his supposed divine revelations, they thought it wise to seek a blessing. Samuel's face lit up as he beckoned Adiz forward. Young woman, please come forward. Adiz hesitated, but her mother nudged her, whispering, Go, this could be your blessing. As Adiz stepped up to the front, Samuel raised his hand in what looked like a gesture of divine revelation. He took a deep breath, then announced dramatically, The Lord has revealed something troubling to me, my daughter. The congregation fell silent, hanging on every word. Samuel looked at Adiz with a grave expression, shaking his head slowly. Young woman, your life battery is running dangerously low. I see darkness ahead if nothing is done. Adiz felt her heart begin to pound. Life battery. She didn't understand, but she could see Samuel's serious expression. Mama, please, what does that mean? She asked, her voice trembling. Samuel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and lowered his voice, making the tension in the air thicken. It means, my daughter, that if something isn't done quickly, you won't live to see your 30s. Marriage, children, career success, all of that will be lost to you unless you act now. Adiz's face turned pale. Her mother gasped, clutching her chest in fear. But Samuel continued, raising his hand as if bestowing hope upon her. The Lord has provided a solution. There is a way to renew your life battery, to ensure you live a long and prosperous life. He leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing with intensity. You must make a sacrifice, a powerful seed, something that costs you deeply, for the Lord blesses those who give from the heart. Adiz's mother gripped her daughter's arm tightly, her eyes wide with worry. What kind of sacrifice, Papa? She asked desperately. Samuel nodded as if he had expected the question. The Lord has directed me, he said, his voice dropping to a hush, that your daughter's life can be renewed with the sacrifice of 25 live chickens. Not just any chickens, but big, healthy ones, the kind that costs real money. They symbolize the 25 years of life that will be added to her destiny. Adiz's mind reeled at the thought. 25 big chickens would cost a fortune. Papa, I don't have money for that right now, she stammered. Samuel waved his hand dismissively. Do not worry, my daughter. The Lord understands. You need not go out and find chickens yourself. You can simply convert this sacrifice into a seed. Give me the amount, and I will take care of the rest. The church is a way to handle these things. You just need to be obedient and trust in the word of the Lord. Adiz's mother whispered frantically in her ear, urging her to comply. Adiz, don't delay. Just do what Papa Talk and Do says. Your life is worth more than any amount of money. Reluctantly, Adiz agreed. She pulled out her checkbook and wrote a substantial amount, money she had been saving from her overseas work. Samuel accepted the check with a smile of satisfaction. My daughter, your obedience has pleased the Lord. Your life is now in God's hands, and He will reward you for your sacrifice. Relieved but still shaken, Adiz returned to her seat, her mother clinging to her and thanking the prophet profusely. But what she didn't know was that Samuel had no intention of buying any chickens or offering any sacrifice. As he did with many others, he deposited the money straight into his personal account, adding it to the funds for the luxurious mansion he was constructing on the outskirts of town. Grace watched this entire exchange from her position near the back. She had seen this pattern countless times. She knew these prophecies were nothing more than calculated lies to drain followers financially. Her resolve to expose Samuel strengthened with each passing day. Samuel wielded his power not only to deceive but to control lives, even breaking up families for his own selfish desires. He took particular interest in wealthy, influential women who attended his church, especially those he sensed could be easily manipulated. During one scandalous service, Samuel singled out a successful businesswoman named Mrs. Okonkwo. He called her to the front of the congregation, dramatically raising his hand as though receiving a divine message. "Sister Okonkwo," he declared, "the Lord is showing me a troubling vision. A dark cloud surrounds your household. Someone close to you, someone you trust deeply, is working against your blessings." As expected, Mrs. Okonkwo looked alarmed, her eyes widening with shock and fear. "Prophet, who could it be?" she asked desperately, eager to protect her fortune and her family. Samuel leaned in, lowering his voice to a solemn whisper. "It's your husband. I see his spirit entangled in a web of doubt and worldliness, blocking your breakthroughs." He added quickly, "But fear not. Papa Miracle is here to help you. With my special guidance, I can break this curse." Over time, Samuel convinced Mrs. Okonkwo that her husband's supposed negative energy was the reason for her business struggles. He encouraged her to distance herself emotionally, assuring her that deliverance would come if she followed his instructions. What he didn't tell Mrs. Okonkwo was his real motive. He intended to draw her closer to him. Knowing she was vulnerable and wealthy, he began sending her private messages, inviting her to special prayer sessions at his mansion under the pretext of purging her spirit of her husband's influence. These sessions, however, soon took a different turn. Samuel manipulated Mrs. Okonkwo, feeding her flattering words and assurances of a life filled with blessings if she would satisfy his desires. Despite his physical limitations from the sacrifice he'd made, he maintained emotional and psychological control over these women, binding them to him through manipulation and fear. In no time, Mrs. Okonkwo found herself entangled in an inappropriate relationship with Samuel, convinced that her loyalty to him would bring divine favor. This pattern repeated with other wealthy women in the congregation. Samuel sowed seeds of doubt between husbands and wives, breaking apart families and creating dependencies that enriched him both financially and in terms of control. Grace grew increasingly disturbed as she learned of these manipulative tactics. This wasn't just spiritual deception. It was a web of lies that destroyed families and tore relationships apart. Samuel's actions were beyond sinful. They were predatory. One evening, driven by a mixture of determination and righteous anger, Grace decided to follow Samuel. She waited in the bushes near the river behind Samuel's mansion, clutching her phone tightly, hoping to capture whatever dark secret lay hidden. The clock struck midnight. Grace saw Samuel emerge from his mansion. He moved gracefully toward the river, his steps almost gliding across the ground. Grace's heart raced as she watched him pause at the riverbank. Samuel looked up at the sky and began chanting in a strange language, one that sounded ancient and unsettling. Then, before Grace's very eyes, Samuel's form began to change. His skin shimmered, and scales emerged, covering his body. His legs melded together, forming a powerful tail. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light as he slid silently into the water, disappearing beneath the surface with barely a splash. Grace gasped, barely able to process what she had seen. Her hands shook, but she managed to capture video footage on her phone. She realized then that Samuel was not just a fraud. He was something beyond human, something malevolent. She stumbled back, her mind racing. This truth was more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. Samuel wasn't merely deceiving his congregation. He was manipulating them with powers that stemmed from the depths of a dark occultic world. The next morning, Grace returned to the church, her spirit heavy but resolved. She knew now that her mission was not just to reveal Samuel's fraudulent practices but to expose the dangerous forces he was harnessing. But Samuel, aware of Grace's growing investigation, had taken note. His piercing gaze lingered on her during the service, his smile as sharp as a blade. During the altar call that day, Samuel announced that he had a special blessing for one person in the congregation who was called to serve a divine mission. He fixed his gaze on Grace, who froze as he called her forward. "Grace," he said, his voice smooth but laced with an undertone of menace. "Come forward. The Lord has shown me that you carry a heavy burden. Come, let Papa talk and do lift it from you." Grace's heart pounded, but she stepped forward, not wanting to reveal her fear. As Samuel laid a cold hand on her forehead, she felt a chilling sensation run through her body. He whispered in her ear, barely audible to others, "You're treading dangerous waters, my dear. I know who you are. I know what you're trying to do. Be careful, for some secrets are not meant to be uncovered. Remember what happened last time you crossed me." Grace's blood ran cold, but she refused to back down. She locked eyes with him and whispered back, "You destroyed my life once, Samuel. You took away my ability to ever be a mother, but you won't destroy anyone else's life. I'm going to expose you for what you really are." Samuel's smile faltered for just a moment, a flicker of recognition and perhaps even fear crossing his features. Grace's courage became her guiding light as she continued to gather evidence against Samuel. With every passing day, she uncovered more layers of deception and dark manipulation, which confirmed that Samuel's reach went beyond mere tricks. It was demonic. She collected testimonies from former members whose lives had been ruined by Samuel's special blessings. She documented the suspicious pattern of failed destinies among those he had laid hands on. She gathered financial records showing millions of naira collected for sacrifices that were never performed. She had the video of his transformation at the river. She had photos of him pouring contaminated liquid into water containers. When Grace finally released her gathered recordings, photos, testimonies, and the shocking video footage to the media, the world was stunned. Reports spread like wildfire, exposing Samuel's deceitful miracles, staged healings, stolen glories, and occult connections. The video of his transformation into a serpent creature went viral, shocking the nation. News outlets ran special investigations. Former members came forward with their own stories of manipulation and abuse. Congregants who had once revered Samuel now reeled with disbelief, feeling betrayed by the person they had called Papa Talk and Do. Many wept openly, mourning the years and money they had poured into his ministry, only to realize it had all been a carefully orchestrated illusion. Several of the people Samuel had stolen glory from reported their experiences. Chidi, the young university student, came forward to explain how his promising research career had inexplicably stalled after Samuel's blessing. Others shared similar stories, lives that had suddenly taken dark turns after receiving personal prayers from the prophet. The authorities launched investigations. Samuel's mansion was raided, and they discovered the mirrors, the identical ones in his office, home, and church. They found financial records of his scams. They found documents linking him to the occult network of pastors. In her final address to the gathered former congregants and media, Grace spoke with both pain and hope in her voice. "My brothers and sisters," she began, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes, "this experience has taught me something crucial. Just because someone calls themselves a prophet or servant of God doesn't mean they truly are. We must be discerning and vigilant, seeking the truth beyond appearances. Not every church or prayer house represents God's light, and not everyone who claims to be a pastor is genuine." Samuel used his power to destroy lives, including mine. Years ago, when I was young and in love, he convinced me to abort our child. The procedure went wrong, and I lost my womb. I can never have children. He abandoned me in my darkest hour and went on to build his empire on the broken lives of others. But while Samuel's story has cast a dark shadow, it doesn't mean all spiritual leaders are deceivers. There are true servants of God, men and women who work tirelessly in humility and sincerity to bring God's love and truth to his people. They don't ask for wealth or demand strange sacrifices. They don't steal destinies or manipulate families. They simply live in a way that reflects the goodness and mercy of the Almighty. My message to you is this: test everything. Question what seems wrong. Don't be afraid to seek the truth. And most importantly, know that your relationship with God doesn't depend on any human intermediary. Your destiny is yours, given by God, not to be stolen by fraudulent prophets. Samuel took my ability to bear children, but he couldn't take my purpose. My purpose was to stop him from hurting others. And today, that purpose is fulfilled. As Grace finished speaking, many in the crowd stood and applauded, not just for her courage, but for the freedom she had brought them. Former members embraced each other, sharing tears of relief and resolution to rebuild their lives. Samuel was arrested and faced multiple charges: fraud, practicing occultism, obtaining money under false pretenses, and various other crimes. His empire crumbled as quickly as it had risen. The story of Prophet Samuel became a cautionary tale throughout Nigeria and beyond, a reminder that spiritual authority must be earned through genuine service, not theatrical deception. Grace became an advocate for victims of spiritual abuse, helping others recognize the warning signs of fraudulent ministries. She never got back what Samuel took from her. Her womb remained gone, and motherhood remained an impossibility. But in exposing him, she had saved countless others from similar fates. And in that, she found a different kind of purpose, a different kind of legacy. The massive mirrors were removed from the church building. The property was sold, and the proceeds went to compensate some of Samuel's victims. The underwater kingdom lost one of its servants, and the light of truth prevailed over the darkness of deception. Grace's story became a testament to the power of courage, the importance of discernment, and the truth that real spiritual authority comes not from stolen glories or occult powers, but from genuine love, humility, and service to others. This story serves as a reminder. Test every spirit. Question authority that demands blind obedience, and remember that true spiritual leadership is marked by humility, transparency, and genuine love, never by manipulation, fear, or exploitation. If you love this story, please subscribe, like, drop your comment, and share.